Welcome back, everyone, to Pocono Mountains magazine for the month of May, and this month marks National Safe Boating Week in the lead up to Memorial Day. And so I have a couple guests here and a couple guests off camera right now who will be joining us in just a little bit. We have Susie Casper. You're with the Upper Delaware.
Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River.
See, I wanted you to say it because it's a little bit of a longer title, absolutely. And Nick Spinelli, you're with the Tafton Dive Team, correct?
Correct.
And you know Lake Wallenpaupack, you grew up here. Susie, you're from the area too?
I'm not from the area, but I've been here for quite a while, almost 20 years now.
Okay, so we'll qualify you as a long-time resident at this point. And we're talking about safe boating and safety on the water because over the time, here in the Poconos, we welcome so many visitors to the area and so many people here recreate on the river, whether it's boating or swimming. But it's important to make sure you're wearing a life jacket because that can save lives. And Nick, why don't we start with you talking about being out here on the lake or other waterways and the importance of safety when you're going out there to have fun?
Yeah, Jim, there are a lot of considerations for any water body, but when you're going out on Lake Wallenpaupack in particular, especially in summer months, it's a really busy place. So you need to be aware. Distracted boating is really not a great idea. So put your phones down. Make sure that you have safety gear with you, a personal flotation device, a PFD or life jacket as some folks call them. A float plan. Be aware of the weather. A lot of different considerations for keeping yourself safe while you're out there having fun.
And I know that you've responded many times to near drownings or drownings themselves, and the impact that must have on your teams, but let alone the loss of life or the families who are impacted. Can you just share just the gravity of those situations?
Yeah, it's never an easy situation. Obviously for the family, but it's also trying for the rescue teams. It affects all of us. We don't take any of it lightly. So we really try and do our best to be proactive in educating folks about how to be safe while they're out there. It's a tremendous amount of resources that come in for an incident. So we have the Tafton Dive Team here on the north end of the lake. Ledgedale Dive Team is at the south end of the lake. Any type of incident that's out there, we're also calling in other mutual aid teams from elsewhere in the two-county area.
Yeah, and if not all, at least most of those cases, Susie, even last year, 5 drownings on the Upper Delaware. None of them were wearing life jackets.
One actually was wearing a life jacket.
One was.
But the problem with that was it wasn't fastened, it wasn't secured, and when you fall out of your boat, and especially in a very fast-moving water environment, it came right off. And so had that been tightly secured, it would have been a totally different situation.
So it's not just the need to wear it, it's the need to wear it properly.
Absolutely.
What tips would you give to folks to say, like, hey, you need to know these things before we actually have you go out and enjoy the Upper Delaware or the lake or anywhere else?
Definitely. If you're going to have your life jacket on, which is what we want everybody to do, make sure you have it on and have it on securely. We're in a fast-moving water environment. Even though many sections of the river look very calm and placid, there's always a really strong river current. So it's important to have that life jacket on, even if you go in for a swim, because most of our drownings, actually, once we really started looking at our statistics, were swimming related.
Swimming related. What other statistics kind of let people know a little bit more of the backstory of who is falling victim?
So our statistics have shown us that it's young males between the ages of 18 and 34. Most of them know how to swim.
Right.
But it's on the Delaware River, it's much different than being on Lake Wallenpaupack or on the ocean. So there may be a section of the river that looks very calm, but you go in for a swim and all of a sudden you're halfway across the river, you get fatigued, you panic, and things happen very, very quickly. So making sure that even though if it looks calm, just put that life jacket on because it's definitely going to save your life.
Nick, you were in the water literally this past weekend. Very cold, but you had a life jacket, no doubt.
Of course.
And tell me what that's like. What is that like when you have, a tipped over vessel like that and the cold water potentially hits you? Like, having a life jacket is going to make a difference in that situation, no matter the depth of the water and no matter the time of the year.
Right. Cold water drowning is a very real thing, and it's a major issue. Actually, in Pennsylvania now we have regulations on life jacket usage in kayaks and canoes and smaller crafts during the colder weather months. So I happened to dump a canoe on Sunday, and I experienced the involuntary gasp reflex. When you hit cold water, you can't help but inhale. And had I not had a PFD on, I could have gotten lungs full of water, and it could have been a different situation. It's a super, super important thing, not just in those smaller paddle crafts, but also in any boat. If you're out on the lake, or any water body, it's sort of like saying, well, I'll put my seatbelt on right before I get into a car accident. You don't know when that's going to happen.
Exactly.
You need to have that PFD on all the time.
Always be prepared for that. And we are hoping that we can message to people who are out there who might not realize the importance of having a life jacket and having it properly fitted. So we want to share with you right now, before we let Susie and Nick off the hook and bring on our two next guests, we want to share with you a PSA that we've developed here to make sure people wear their life jackets when they're on the river, when they're on the lake as well, to help save a life. Thank you both, and we'll take a look at this now. In the 30 seconds
it takes you to click,
Zip.
Or just fasten your life jacket.
You or someone you love
could be saved from being a drowning victim.
Our rivers and lakes are something special.
So are the lives we will save by wearing it.
please.
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 Wear it.
This message is brought to you by
The Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission.
Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area.
First responders everywhere.
Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River.
and the Pocono Television Network. Welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Jim Hamill, and we have changed out our guests here at the Lake Wallenpaupack Visitor Center. We have Kathleen Sant with the National Park Service down at Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area, and Water Conservation Officer Matthew Dietrich. He's about to go out and stock some trout today, so we got to get him out of here pretty quickly. But we do thank you guys for coming, for Susie and Nick as well, for talking about safe water practices, safe boating, wearing life jackets. You're down, Kathleen, at the other end of the Poconos on the Delaware, and it's a little bit of a different river than the upper Delaware, which is, I wouldn't classify it as lazy up there necessarily, but it does have rapids and things like that. You guys have a much broader and a huger, I think, amount of crowds that come down to a lot of your beaches down there. Describe to me what the difference is about the Delaware where you are.
Yeah, so at Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area, the Middle Delaware National Scenic and Recreational River flows a little bit slower than it does in the upper Delaware reaches. And so I know Susie mentioned that sometimes the river can look placid and calm while there is a strong current underneath. And in our section of the river, I think there are more sections where it looks very calm. It looks like the river's not moving. It looks like a still body of water. And so that can be misleading because people don't realize that just underneath that surface, there is an extremely strong current. And so last year we had 4.2 million visitors that came to the park.
Oh, is that all?
That's all, yes. So we're the 15th most visited national park unit in the country. The year before we had similar visitation. We were the 10th most visited unit. And so we have a lot of people who are coming to the river, many times for their first time. They're inexperienced boaters. They've never been out on the water before or out on a river before. And so making sure that they have all of that important safety information before they get here and then before they get on the river is really, really important to us.
It sure is. And just not talking rivers, lakes, Matthew, you see like the huge amount of attention here too during the height of the season on Lake Wallenpaupack and other areas as well. And I think the overall goal here is to make sure that no matter where you are on the water, you're thinking safety first, even though you're there to have a great time. So what kind of things would you say the Fish and Boat Commission is trying to do to keep people safe, in addition to life jacket safety and just even alcohol usage?
Right, so we're actually coming up on the busy time of the season, usually around Memorial Day. It's going to start getting busy up until about September. So we have the 3 major holidays in there between Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day. So we're out there pretty much every day. We're looking for safety violations. We're looking for rules of the road, basically making traffic stops on the water, making sure people are safe, making sure they have all their safety equipment, making sure they're not under the influence of operating. As you're aware, the boating under the influence laws are the same. They basically mimic the rules of the road and the driving under the influence. Although it's not illegal to possess alcohol on a boat or even consume alcohol while driving, we certainly don't recommend it at all.
Sure.
And the limit is 0.08. So anything over that is an arrestable offense for boating under the influence of alcohol. When you mix that with not having life jackets on, when you mix that with not having enough safety equipment, it certainly presents a dangerous situation.
It sure does, and I know that you guys have been on the front lines of these responses when people have been in drowning situations. The sheer magnitude of like what that means for your staff, for the first responders, let alone the victims' families and friends who are now going from a situation that's supposed to be enjoyable to one that is just heartbreaking. Kathleen, what is the human toll?
Well, the human toll is huge, right? So when I go out on the water, I wear my life jacket because it's really important to me that I come home to my family at the end of the day. They depend on me,
Sure.
and they love me. And so when we see people, fathers, sons, brothers, mostly males,
Sure.
who are not coming home at the end of the day, that is tragic. It's tragic for the families, and it's tragic for those of us, not me, but those of us on our rescue crews who do have to recover bodies of drowning victims and have to work with the families to bring closure to those families. It is really important to us that we do everything that we can to prevent those incidents from happening, and then when they do happen, that we do everything in our power to be able to recover those bodies and to be able to bring closure to those families. It is tragic all around, and it impacts everybody.
It sure does. Matthew, I know that people might think life jackets are not cool, but they're certainly cooler than the alternative, right?
The alternative is, possibly not going home at the end of the day. And as Nick pointed on earlier, we do have a law in Pennsylvania. It's called the Cold Weather Wear Law. From November 1st to April 30th, all occupants of canoes, kayaks, and boats less than 16 feet are required to wear life jackets while out on the water. That's going to go away April 30th. But even after that, we certainly encourage everybody to wear life jackets. Of course, they have to have one per person on their boat, and all occupants of personal watercrafts are required to wear them. Not only wear them, but have them buckled, have them fitting neatly, have them fitting properly, and then, just making sure they have them and making sure they have all the rest of their safety equipment.
So anything that you want to leave our viewers with, our listeners with, regarding water safety, life jacket safety, before we hopefully have, the message sink into those who need it?
Yeah, I just really want to comment on something that Susie said earlier that was really important, and that is that it's not just important to wear your life jacket, but to wear it properly and to make sure that it is fitted properly. If it's too big, if it's too small, it's not going to do what it's intended to do. If it's not zipped, if it's not fastened, it's not going to do what it's intended to do. And so for both of our parks, we have never had a drowning where someone was wearing a properly fitted and fastened life jacket. It is the number one thing that people can do to save their lives and to make sure that they go home to their friends and their families at the end of the day.
Let that sink in. No drownings with a properly fitted life jacket. Kathleen, Matthew, to Susie and Nick, thank you so much for joining us here on Pocono Mountains Magazine. A very critical message to get out there this year and any year. We'll be right back.